Welcome to Rehash.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Rehash, a Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Diana Chen, and today we're speaking with Keiran Sim, founder of Mirage, about the current state and future of augmented reality, the AR social layer, and Keiran's newest project, Mirage, which is a platform for geolocated AR objects that offers a vast array of options for creativity between the physical and the digital world. Before we dive into our conversation, here's a quick word from the Web3 projects that helped make this season possible.
Social media wasn't designed for ads and algorithms. It was made for people. And at Lens Protocol, we're putting people back in control. We're not looking for users' data. We're here to build a community of collaborators, builders, artists, and dreamers ready to unlock a new world of social media. This isn't just an app. It's a flourishing ecosystem of platforms and experiences owned and operated by the developers and creators who are bringing it to life. In the Lensverse, you don't just own your content, you own everything. Your data, your connections, the value you bring to the table, it all stays in your possession, exactly where it should be. As a creator, the Lens ecosystem offers a new set of tools for connecting with your audience. Your data is truly portable and belongs to you. Post once and distribute everywhere in the Lensverse. You can even take your followers with you from app to app. As a developer, you can skip right past building the base layers and scaling your users by plugging your new app directly into Lens's existing infrastructure and community. So whether you create with a brush or a camera, sound waves or lines of code, it's time you got your due. Come create the future of social media with us on Lens Protocol. Lens is the last social media handle you'll ever need.
Have you seen how epic Ambire Wallet is?
How epic it is?
Yeah, cue the music. Ambire is a Web3 wallet that makes crypto self-custody easy and secure for everyone. Instead of relying on clunky seed phrases, you can create an account with the hardware wallet or username and password, secure it with two-factor authentication, and regain access with Ambire's cloud recovery. Need to pay out some contributors or execute a bunch of trades? No problem, Chief. Queue up as many transactions as you want, and when you're ready, execute the entire batch at the same time, paying gas only once. You can even prepay for gas with stablecoins or Ambire's native wallet token, which will get you some cash back. Without ever leaving the Ambire interface, you can manage assets from over a dozen chains, safely migrate them with Ambire's built-in bridge, and seamlessly interact with dApps like Uniswap, Aave, and Snapshot, all within the same transaction. Plus, Ambire is constantly growing their dApp catalog with trusted partners and collaborating with builders who want to establish the new standard for smart contract wallets. So, pretty epic, huh?
Yeah, I already know all that though. I've had an Ambire wallet for months.
And you didn't tell me?
You never asked. To get involved and truly own your assets, go to ambire.com. How was your day?
Bad.
What happened?
I bought some NFTs and then they just disappeared.
Sounds like your NFT creator should have used NFT.storage.
NFT. What?
NFT.storage. Come on, I'll show you. With NFT.storage, anyone can easily upload their NFT data to a decentralized and reliable storage network, completely for free.
Wow! How does it work?
Well, instead of relying on centralized and impermanent storage solutions, NFT.storage uploads your files to IPFS and Filecoin. These are powerful peer-to-peer networks that are made for the decentralized web. Thanks to IPFS's unique storage system, you can be confident that once your files are uploaded, they'll be accessible from anywhere in the world for as long as you'd like. They're already trusted by some of the biggest names in Web3, like OpenSea, Magic Eden, and Rarible. By adding files to these networks for free, NFT.storage is helping to turn proper NFT data management into a public good. This will ensure that NFTs will remain accessible and secure in the long run, so you won't get rugged again.
Gee, so I just upload my files and NFT.storage will take care of the rest?
Now you're getting it! Go to NFT.storage today to upload some NFT data of your own, for free. And be sure to follow NFT.storage on Twitter, at NFTDOTStorage.
So without further ado, here's our guest, Keiran. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm well. What's up? Thanks so much for having me, Diana.
Thanks so much for being here, and thanks for shortening your name to Sim, just like your sister, Ane, who
Just
I
like
used to
that.
podcast with, making my life a lot easier.
There we go. Shout out Ane. Huge.
Shout out Ane. So you've been working on a really cool project recently called Mirage, which has to do with the AR social layer. So I want to get deep into AR today. But for listeners who may not be super familiar with augmented reality, I want to just start from the basics and kind of talk about what augmented reality is and some of the basic use cases we've seen for AR up to today. And then we can kind of go deeper and then imagine what the future of AR might look like. So to sort of set the stage for listeners, at a basic level, what is augmented reality and how have we been seeing it experienced to date?
Yeah, I think on a basic level, augmented reality is just bringing the power of the internet into the everyday. So when you think about virtual reality as a way of kind of taking you away and putting you in a new system, AR is just enhancing our current world using the technology we already have at our disposal on our smartphones. So really, I think of AR as a new container for software in many ways, just as the iPhone was. The next version of AR is just going to be based on bringing all the software we know and love into our everyday, viewable in new ways. Yeah. And I guess to answer the second part of your question, where have we already seen that? So augmented reality in its like earliest form has been around since the 60s, but that wouldn't be what we would call like clear-cut AR. Most people's experience with AR is something as simple as like the AR snap filters on Instagram or Snapchat, or it would be the Pokemon Go. But really AR to date is more of this front-facing individual experience that's not persistent, that's not multiplayer. We've seen a lot of education, entertainment on the retail scale, but I think we're really excited about putting AR more into our social sphere.
Yeah, I've seen it on the retail scale with, if you want to buy furniture, for example, I forget which companies, but I think some of them will let you place the couch in your living room or the dining table in your dining room and see how it all fits before you buy it online. And then I have to admit, like one thing I use AR for a lot is where you can search for like a dog breed on Google and then you can capture this dog and put it in your living room. I've definitely played around with that a lot and just like filled my living room with dogs. Just kind of like my fantasy that, one day when I'm retired or make it big in crypto or something, that's going to be me.
Yeah,
but
dog central. I love that.
It is really cool that there's been so many interesting use cases, not all just like purely entertainment too. Like Snapchat, that's just purely entertainment. But then again, with like that retail case, that's actually a really practical use case for, buying something online that you may not know how it fits in your house or how it fits in your environment. You're able to test that out before you make the purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just like the workforce setting, right? Like Microsoft HoloLens and these new AR headsets and whatnot are predominantly being used for kind of industrial means. So we're seeing more of the entertainment consumer side, thinking about like the NHL and those fourth down lines that are all AR generated, but a lot of use cases both in the medical and industrial side that are going to come into use over time as well, that already are. Yeah.
Very cool. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? That's not really something I've seen or I've really thought about, but sounds like an interesting use case for AR that we haven't really like seen in the mainstream yet.
Yeah, I just think like education in general, right? Like when you think about now using AR as a way of enhancing, now you can see the past, present, and future, perhaps of something overlaid in AR space. It could teach you, kind of give you an X-ray view in AR and a medical side on how people are dealing with things. But yeah, I think we're much more focused on Mirage, on building to that over time and starting with this entertainment side going forward. Yeah.
Very cool. And then last thing about AR, I think a lot of times people conflate AR with VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, virtual reality. Can you just briefly talk about the difference between the two and, just so people are clear on what we're talking about with AR and not confusing that with VR?
Yeah, virtual reality is basically the idea of taking you away from the digital world and putting you in a new, completely in a like unique digital environment, while AR is really just adding and enhancing our already worldview. So I'd say that's the main difference. Instead of taking us away, it's bringing it back and further enhancing the real world with the power of the internet.
Gotcha. Okay, so I want to dive into the AR social layer, which you've already alluded to a little bit with the Snapchat filters, the Snapchat AR filters, and things like that. Can you talk a little bit more about what that AR social layer is, like how you think about that? And let's just imagine that a little bit and what we can do with AR social.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the last decade of AR has been largely built on the front-facing camera of our phones, for better lack. So that's like the idea of having AR filters and really just kind of having these one-off individual experiences. I really think the next decade of AR is going to be using the back camera and creating world effects. So what I mean by that is you'll be able to basically deploy augmented reality objects that are persistent, geolocked to specific locations, and create context around the digital media we already consume in a new way. So what does that look like on a social level? That's saving memories, geolocked to specific contexts. That's now using our art or media and tethering it to specific locations to be seen in that way. And then creating this persistent layer of content that can be consumed, whether on an individual level or on a multiplayer level, because again, all of those are geolocked to one exact location. It's not so much something that happens just on our face on a Snapchat filter.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think what you're talking about maybe is triggering a thought in people's heads, like geotagging to a certain location. This kind of reminds me of taking a photo, posting it on Instagram, and tagging the location there. So what you're talking about with AR, what different implications does that have for people than just uploading a photo to Instagram and tagging the location?
Yeah, I really think it's the experience and the effort of going to view that location in space. So now, instead of just posting a photo or video on one of these social networks, if I do it at a specific location, now the context of that environment really helps to push the narrative of what that photo is. It can be as simple as you go out to some concert, you take all these videos, now those are geolocked in front of the place. Maybe a new artist is dropping a song. They only want that song to be listened to under the Brooklyn Bridge. You now have more power as a digital creator to basically see what the context is and how your work is consumed outside of the endless scrolls and feed that we've become accustomed to. It's bringing it back to the everyday, which I think is the real mission of AR.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense because sometimes, like when I travel and I go see historic buildings or landmarks, to me it just looks like a building or like maybe a cool looking building, but I don't really know the significance behind it. And to be able to, what you're saying is that I could take out my phone when I go to these landmarks and open up an app, for example, and see all the objects or all the memories that people have captured at that landmark in various times in history. And that can give me maybe a more holistic view of what this landmark is and what the significance is to the people who've been here in the past.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's so much. I mean, we walk through these cities and we have no idea what's happened in all of these locations, whether it's digital shrines or new ways of consuming media or where maybe Warhol and Basquiat met for the first time in a cafe. These histories are seeping with all of this history that we just don't have access to. Giving access to that via AR is, I think, a really powerful use case that's already been done in many ways via John Hankey's Ingress and these other AR projects. But I think what gets us really excited is allowing that to be democratized to a larger audience within AR. So we can now capture our memories initially in this sense, but that eventually will be 3D objects and whatnot placed, capturing our experiences with the cities that we can share with our grandchildren and whatnot. And now having a living record of these cities and kind of like a new sense of vitality in many ways for everyone to explore and enjoy with one another.
Interesting. With any kind of emerging technology, I think there's always this danger of it turning into a Black Mirror episode. And so I'm kind of thinking like the first thing that comes to mind is this going to make people even more antisocial than they already are? Like, this has been a conversation for years is kids are just on their devices all day now. They're not playing outside. They're not really interacting with people in real life. And as people that work in crypto and the Web3 space, we see this very much so, maybe you less so than I do, since, you're living in the heart of Web3, basically in Brooklyn. But for me, like most of my interaction with people in crypto are online and not in person. Do you think that expanding AR in this way, in this social way, is going to make people have even fewer IRL experiences with one another and just rely on the digital even more?
No, I actually think it's going to do the opposite, because when you create experiences via AR that are geolocked in space in the everyday city, it gives people more incentive to go outside, to collect, to experience, and share that opportunity with each other. When we think about like the chaos of Pokemon Go summer in 2016, I think that was the first time we really saw that many unique groups of people connecting for the first time in this unique experience with a common goal. I'm largely influenced by like these drops you see with Cortez or music artists. Think about like that Fred Against set they did in Times Square out of nowhere, right? I think Mirage helps to empower more experiences like that, because now you don't need to do some brick and mortar, build some structure. You can seamlessly create and drop new experiences anywhere in the city and hopefully create more like flash mob chaos while that's happening and cause a little bit of fun. But yeah, I'm super excited about that. But on the Black Mirror side, I mean, I'll bring it back. Like, huge inspiration for this. And Fig and I, way back when, like, there was this video released in 2016 by this guy, Kichi Matsuda, which is this video hyper reality that gave like this Black Mirror perception of what AR could become in Colombia. And it's like this world of AR spam and ads everywhere and this nonstop simulation. And look, I think we want to create a system so that doesn't happen. Like, I do think with the way things are going with this hyper state of stimulation we're kind of living within, we could trend in that direction. But a big part of Mirage is allowing people to have more control and access over this AR platform that we'll eventually run into. And I really hope our curation feature and the way we do so will help empower that.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit more about Mirage. You've mentioned it a couple of times now. Tell us what Mirage exactly is. I think on your website or Twitter or something, I found that it's a platform for geolocated AR objects. It sounds like it's basically an app that enables a lot of the things that we've been talking about so far. But I'll let you give kind of like the 30,000 foot view of Mirage.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I think AR creation is not so accessible right now. We wanted to, first off, democratize access to AR creation and then allow those AR creations to be seamlessly deployed in any city environments. So create a persistent multiplayer view on augmented reality. What do I mean by persistent? All I mean is the same object in the same place for everyone. Again, unlike Pokemon Go, where Pikachu is not in the same spot for everyone, unlike a snap filter where it's kind of a one-off experience, we want to create digital experiences that are geo-locked, that can be a multiplayer way of communication. And it's as simple as basically taking your camera roll and deploying AR assets directly to specific locations in New York City that can then be viewed by all. Kind of like a mix of Find My Friends, Zenly-esque with this AR create feature. We just really want to allow everyone to create an AR, create their own experiences, and then see how that evolves into hopefully a world of AR opportunities over time.
Okay, can you give a real life example of how somebody could create an object in a particular space and geolocated there? Because I think so far we've just been talking about like identifying objects that already exist in our space, but now you're kind of introducing a new concept of actually creating a new object, putting it into a space, and then letting other people find it there.
Yeah, so literally the way it would work is you right now can walk to any location in New York City, pull up your phone, you kind of have like a camera view of that experience. You then can take any photo, video from your camera roll, drop it in that location in AR, figure out the sizes, figure out the shapes, how you want that to be consumed. And now you can lock it to that place. So now anytime someone rolls up, they get to see, oh, Diana dropped this in front of Times Square at this location at the exact time. So it's like, again, creating this kind of living memory of the city with all of our unique moments, all of the media we drop. It could be memories, maybe it's songs. It really depends on the user and how they want to use this tool. But really, it's a tool to, again, just allow AR creation to be more accessible and persistent in our everyday life.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm thinking like an average person. For me, like something that I might drop is a photo of my dog. If I'm traveling somewhere where he can't come with me, I might want to drop a photo of him there and be like, Toby was here, you know, in the digital sense. And then other people can go and see Toby in front of the Eiffel Tower or other places that he'll never be able to go to. But for a creator, I could also imagine them wanting to drop, like you mentioned earlier, you know, dropping a song that you're only able to listen to under the Brooklyn Bridge because maybe that was the location that inspired the artist to write that song, or that's the feeling that the artist wants you to have while listening to that song or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it can go even crazier than that, though, right? Maybe it's like a giant Roblox character in the center of Times Square. Maybe it's a way of, again, tracking the history of the MoMA throughout the Lower East Side. And maybe it's a way of dropping songs. But I really, again, the big point of this was we want to give people a tool. Let's see how they use it. We think a lot of creators and artists will use it in a specific way to capture moments. But imagine it's something as beautiful as someone dropping a note on a park bench that you can then see a random person has dropped this there and they've been able to pick that up all digitally native. There's a bunch of different use cases, I think, on both the commercial and individual side that we're excited to kind of explore over time.
I'm curious how you're thinking with Mirage about any sort of content censorship. And I know like censorship isn't a word people like, but I'm thinking about it more as a way to protect users from potentially harmful content that people will drop. There's bad actors in every industry. And even with a tool as cool as Mirage, I'm sure people are going to take advantage of it and maybe, drop not safe content for people out in public, and then people will find it, and that's not a good thing. So how is Mirage thinking about, making sure that the content, the objects people are creating with Mirage and dropping in a space are safe for everybody to consume?
Yeah. So that's like the number one biggest thing we've been thinking about as we're going through this is kind of creating moderation rules and censorship over these mirrors that people are dropping. That's going to be done in a couple ways. First off, as a part of Mirage, you'll have access to curate specifically to see if you want to see the public world or just your close friends. But on the other end of that, obviously we have flags built in. If something has been downvoted by a certain amount of the community, it's immediately left off the platform. And really kind of just baseline security rules on what we want to get accomplished and keep things safe. But yeah, we've been spending a lot of time on that. It's still a work in progress. I don't think we have all the solutions. We're going to learn a lot as we get going, hopefully get to scale. But for the meantime, it's going to be based mostly on the curation of the community, the ability to like self-flag and report, and then our own intervention over time. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of how social media has been moderated thus far, similar to that. Okay.
Right.
And then I think another concern that I've heard people talk about, at least with AR, is this concern with privacy and security when, you're constantly interacting, geolocating things out there. I think there can be privacy and security issues with your data getting stolen or just making it easier to get hacked by people that are out there. How has Mirage been thinking about this, and what, I guess, precautions have you guys put in place to make sure that this kind of really like new cutting edge technology is still safe for everybody to use?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously coming from this Web3 background, we want to slowly decentralize the platform so we all have the power over the data that we create, first off. So trending towards that, right now, we're not trying to exploit or monetize. It's a double opt-in system from the beginning on all user data. Again, on top of that, they will have full reign on how they want to have their data shared, but really they have ownership and access over that. That's not something we're trying to exploit or share with others. That's not part of the business model by any means. It's a completely user-powered decision on how they want to create and use their data. Yeah.
Can you talk about that decentralization piece a little bit? You're saying in the future you want Mirage to be owned by the users. What is that going to look like, and what's that process to that state of decentralization going to look like for you guys?
Yeah, so long term, we see Mirage being kind of this world of worlds, right? Where people create their own distinct social layer on Mirage that you can have access to and have power over. It almost will look like a lot of subreddits stacked on top of each other. Not only will all of these mirrors that people drop in space, which are the AR creations, we're calling them mirrors, be their own digital assets that you can collect and own by yourselves, but these worlds will be as well. So we really see then the next stage of this. And I'm a huge proponent and advocate for this collect model. I really think social media is going to trend towards this as the way of accruing value to specific objects. We're leaning in on that side, slowly building the platform for people to have all the power and ownership over everything they create on the Mirage protocol, and then build that over time. Yeah.
Gotcha. More generally, what other applications of Web3 do you see us putting onto AR? Because so far, I think AR has been this cutting edge in the traditional tech world, but applying Web3 principles to AR, I think could be interesting. I just haven't thought enough about this, but I'm sure it's something that you've thought about.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, jumping back into the collect side, right? I think you're already seeing it with a lot of these social networks that are trending more towards collection as opposed to passive likes and double taps. Think about how Spotify has changed this heart icon to a plus icon, or how you're already seeing Lens build their whole system around this idea. I think collection will be the next evolution in this. And what I think Mirage is doing, which is very interesting, is it's not like you can collect based on your phone in any environment. You actually have to show effort and go to a location in order to collect it. So I think it creates a more, effort incentivized action of collection that is much more than a double tap or even just press and collect on your phone. And that, in a way, I think is going to be very powerful because it shows who's really passionate about this community, this artist, this object, that they're willing to go all the way across New York or wherever they are to collect this and add this to their Mirage profile.
Yeah, another application I can kind of think of, and tell me if this is, in line with what Mirage can actually offer or not, is, for example, I used to be a travel blogger back in like 2017 until COVID hit in 2020. And thinking about applying some sort of subscription model to Mirage, where maybe, instead of just like putting out articles about all the places that we went to and these travel guides like we used to, or even travel video guides that's most popular today, we could almost make like a token gated subscription to our Mirage where we put all of these objects, and these objects maybe are just like notes of things that we learned while we were in these different places all around the world that we visited. And people can, instead of just reading our travel guide, actually take a trip that we planned for them and then show up to these locations, be able to unlock these notes we've written about, what to look at there, where to go to, like maybe secret insider tips, things like that. And you're only able to access our feed or, our profile or our group or whatever with like a paid token gated subscription or something like that. Is that something that would be made possible with Mirage and kind of some of the Web3 tools that we've talked about?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something we're thinking about a lot, right? And also this idea of, if I'm going to actually put effort in to collect this, it shows that I care about that so much more. And I think that's becoming increasingly important in this world where, look, if everything can go viral, nothing can go viral. There's so many eyes on the internet right now. It's really hard to create subculture in general. But now if you actually have to go to this location to collect this artist's work or to experience this thing, you start building these modes for, okay, who actually cares about this to a degree? And I think that allows a new kind of generation of subculture creation and creativity to form based on this regionalization of interests. So completely agree with you there. And I think it's going to only enhance that and really hopefully create like more regionalized cultural bodies off of the internet in real space.
Yeah, and then kind of diverting from AR a little bit, but just talking more about like this collection feature in Web3 social in general. For listeners who aren't really in the Web3 space so far, who are just kind of Web3 curious right now and don't fully understand this concept of collecting. When we say collect, we're talking about basically paying an artist or a creator to have a copy of their work, their song, their video, their podcast, whatever it may be. And one question that I've heard a lot of people ask, and I've asked this myself, is why would you pay to collect something when you can simply, access all of this information for free online? Like if you want to listen to somebody's song, you can go on YouTube and search it, or you can go on Spotify and get it for free. Why then would I want to pay an artist to collect, other than obviously like, if you want to support an artist, you should, pay to collect their work. But I think it's just become way too easy in our current world to stream music for free, to Google images of art for free. Everything is for free on the internet at our disposal. How do we convince people to kind of shift their mindset from this free consumption model to a paid collect model?
Yeah, I think, well, you can think about it in the sense that the internet now is just a really passive engagement system, right? Like, as you said, everything is so accessible. There's no way to really prove how much you really care beyond actually showing up to an artist concert or buying their merch or something like that, right? I really think what crypto, Web3 in general is empowering is just an easier, more accessible mode of supporting artists. Just as you would go to a concert or collect their merch, this is just another way of doing so that in turn can provide a lot more perks and whatnot along the way, because you then show to that artist, that creator, how much you care about your content. And you've helped to climb that ladder of effort, ladder of engagement, that you really care about this person. Now they recognize that, and you can in turn collect more based on that. But yeah, I think it's just more than anything a way of differentiating yourself as a super fan. And we're already seeing that with fan clubs and whatnot, but this is just a more accessible way to do so, which directly helps the artist or the creator.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's also this concept of ownership, right? As a fan in our traditional world, if you're a fan of Grimes, for example, you can buy her merch, you can go to her concerts, you can buy her music online, you can do all of that. But at the end of the day, that's about as much as you can do. There's no real way for you to connect with other fans. There's no real way for you to connect with Grimes, the artist, to influence, what she does, like what songs she puts out, or maybe what songs she plays on tour, or where she goes on tour. None of that is really possible. And I think with Web3 and being able to collect artists' work, because these collects are all recorded on a public blockchain, and there are much easier ways to use this data that's recorded on a public blockchain to enable certain actions, like we were talking about earlier with like a token gated subscription to like a travel blog with geolocated objects all around the world, something like that. Like you could also imagine that, by collecting an artist's song, you could also access a private community where you get to vote on her tour locations, or which songs she plays on tour, or what piece of merch she puts out next. Maybe you can even help design the merch that she puts out, something like that. So I think that is, to me at least, like another really enticing piece of why collect, an artist's music or an artist's work instead of just consuming it passively online like we've been doing for so many years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like an example of that in Mirage could be as simple as, look, Fred Again or Skrillex, they drop some open edition Mira that you could have access to if you go to this specific location. And maybe they drop 3 of those. And if you were to collect all 3, then you get access to the next time they do a pop-up shop or that location right away. I think there's all these incentive games that can happen based on that are going to be powered by crypto, Web3, whatever that may be.
Super exciting stuff. All right, moving back to AR, I want to pick your brain about where you think the future of AR is headed and what it's going to look like. So if you imagined us, being 10 years in the future, it's the year 2033, how are we interacting with AR on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Well, then I think it will be as simple as, if you think about how we use our smartphones right now, we're kind of bumbling on the sidewalks, staring down. I think AR will allow us to finally look up. And most of the things and most of the software we use on our smartphone will just be ingrained in our everyday life as we're walking down the street. Whether it's the street signs, whether it's the media, whether it's the marketing, whether it's the things when we go to a waiting room in a hospital, I think all of that will be powered by AR down the line. It's just a matter of getting technology and hardware that makes that seamless. There's a lot of steps being made in that direction by Apple and what's not to get to that reality. But I really think of it as this new container of software that will empower everything from, again, as we're talking about education, seeing the city in all of its stages when you're in a specific location, and how that evolved over time in AR, and transporting you to these environments while still remaining in the exact same spots. All of that will be powered by AR, and I'm excited to see how that evolves.
Yeah, definitely. I think in an education context too, with a lot of topics in class, for example, like any kind of science lab or something where you really have to like use your imagination to kind of imagine what this would look like in real life, like learning very theoretical concepts in school, I think would be made a lot easier with AR if you could actually see a 3D modeling of the object that the teacher is talking about and be able to like visualize that a little bit better. I think especially for visual learners, that could be really helpful.
Yeah, I think it's like, and it's a larger trend on things where we're kind of already living in this attention economy. And I think we've reached almost this peak attention where there's no more real clear-cut, mineable attention in our everyday. So what's going to then happen is we're going to shift into this idea of a perspective-based economy, which is not so much on drowning our own self-interest, but allowing us to live the world through different eyes and experience the world through different experiences and environments, whether that's on a historical standpoint and an education side or more individualized as well. But I really think that shift from the perspective economy is going to be powered by AR and giving us seamless access to so many different opportunities and ways of learning.
And then sort of on the flip side, what would a more dystopian future in 10 years look like if things, go awry in the next 10 years? It's the year 2033. Some bad actors have really come in along the way, and AR is huge, but not in a good way. What would that look like?
Well, I think right now what would be really difficult and challenging is like if we continue on how these big tech companies are handling AR, where they're building their own walled gardens, where it's really difficult to have assets that are shared across Snap's ecosystem and Instagram's ecosystem. And then we create like kind of this fractured set of worlds within AR that create a more dystopian thing. Maybe one of them is filled with spam. Maybe it's leaning in heavy into the attention economy where you're getting notifications in AR nonstop to your Google Glass. I think we need to control that leave that outside the hands of these big public corporations, leave that outside the hands of the feed, and create more open source sustainable practices for augmented reality, because I do think it's going to be as catastrophic as a new internet in a sense by bringing it to us. I would check out Hyper Reality by Kiichi there. That's not what we're trying to live in. Maybe you can post a clip of that. That shit is crazy. We don't want a spam-filled world of AR. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. I don't think I've seen that yet. And then finally, are there any final thoughts you have about Mirage or augmented reality in general that we didn't have a chance to talk about yet that you'd like listeners to know?
I mean, we covered a lot here. I think the real power, again, is just allowing people to have context over everything they create in their world through augmented reality. I think this shift is going to happen no matter what. And by creating new engagement systems and effort-based systems to explore and collect AR is really going to be a way we can differentiate as creators, as consumers, what we really care about, which I think taking a stand and being clear about what you really care about is so rare in this day and age when, again, we can care about everything because, as we said, it's so accessible. I'm excited for a world where AR powers engagement with these artists and allows for hopefully a more genuine connection socially with creators, but also with friends.
Love it. I think another one of my biggest takeaways too is how AR can enable actually more of a connection with the physical world than we're living in right now, which I think is pretty cool because usually when people think about emerging technology, they think, oh, we're just shifting towards a more and more digital sort of lifestyle. But what, I think I've learned from this conversation is that AR can actually enable us to live more in our physical world, which I think is pretty cool for a piece of technology to be able to do.
Yeah, for sure. Cause some chaos, live more. I definitely think that's going to happen. It'll be good.
Cool. Well, we finish every episode with a game. This season, we're playing the word association game. I don't know if you've listened to any past episodes, but if you did, it's not going to help you because I've got a tin here of about 50 slips of paper, and I'm just going to draw the slips of paper at random. I'm going to draw 10 of them. I'm going to say the word on the piece of paper, and then you're going to say the first word that comes to mind. Okay, super straightforward. The word you say doesn't have to make any sense. It's just, you got to say the first thing that comes to mind. It's meant to be really fast, rapid fire. We can get through all of this in 60 seconds.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
All right. So I've just drawn 10 slips of paper here, and I'm going to read the first one, media.
Media? Mirage? That's lame.
Another rule. No, it's not lame. Another rule is you can't say the same word every single time. So now that you've said Mirage, you can't say Mirage again.
Okay.
Second one, DAO.
DAO, Constitution.
Ecosystem.
Rainforest.
Layer 2.
Polygon.
Deflationary.
Ethereum.
Protocol.
Aave.
Metaverse.
Oh my gosh. Meta?
Okay, we'll let that one slide.
That doesn't count. Zuck.
Well,
How's
okay.
that? Yeah. Right.
Modular.
Base.
Okay. Scalable.
System. I want to do some crazy shit. Let's
Last one, zero knowledge.
Proof. Oh man, these are God.
I think I forgot to mention all of these words are
these are like crypto shit.
They're commonly misused or overused words in Web3, and I source these from Twitter. So they're typical stuff that you see on Twitter every day.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah, you did great. Good job with that. Some people really struggle through the game. Last thing, cool. Keiran, before you go, tell people where they can find you if they want to follow you personally, and then also where they can go to check out Mirage and what your timeline is for launching Mirage.
Yeah, for sure. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm just at Keiran Sim. Also, Mirage is there at this Mirage. If you're based in New York, we're going to be launching in New York this summer and only New York. So if you have any interest in seeing early iterations of the product or just want to be involved, please reach out to me. Yeah, very excited to bring AR into the mainstream and happy to have any help along the way. So let me know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on Rehash today. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And we'll be back again next Thursday with another episode of Rehash.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Rehash. Rehash is hosted by Diana Chen, produced and edited by Ellie Dots and Tyler Internet, and sponsored by Lens, Ambire Wallet, and NFT.storage. Rehash is also supported by Rehash DAO, a community of NFT holders who curate our guest lineup each season. To get involved, head over to our website at rehashweb3.xyz and collect this episode as an NFT. Anyone who collects an episode becomes a part of Rehash DAO and will be able to nominate guests for future seasons. Voting rights are reserved for our guests, sponsors, and OG crowdfund supporters. And to learn more about how to become a guest or sponsor, go to rehashweb3.xyz/podcast. Finally, be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at rehashweb3, or on Lens at rehash.lens.